Auditor General Gamini Vijay Singha says he cannot provide a correct number for the national debt. Speaking at the launch of the annual audit report, Vijay Singha said the delay in passing the audit bill as per the 19th Amendment to the Constitution has paved the way for many issues.
The department is like a person whose limbs were bound and thrown into the sea. We are facing a situation where we cannot do anything. If someone asks me the exact figure for national debt, all I can say is, go ask that from God. The management of public debt over the past decade was a complete mess. The main reason for this is the excessive loans obtained, exceeding the limits that have been imposed by the law, and writing off these debt from the books and moving the debt into different places. We have termed the former Secretary of the Finance Minister as the person who assassinated the economy. Certain key incidents had taken place that led to the violation of financial discipline in the country. As per the records of the Finance Minister, as of the 31st of December 2016, the debt was recorded at 8.9 trillion rupees. According to the Central Bank, the deficit for 2017 is 10.3 trillion rupees. Financial statements for 31st December 2016 record the value of assets at 1.1 trillion rupees. This is what we see as a more serious issue. By 2004-2005, the total debt has been allocated for investment purposes. However, as debt mounted, the investments have dropped. The former chief accountants, as a measure to overcome this, decided to write off some debt. For example, the debt of the Norochale power plant was moved to the Ceylon Electricity Board. The same goes for the loans obtained for the Hambantota port, the Suriyava grounds, Mattala. The loans are in the aviation department. The RDA accounts are filled with the debt obtained for the construction of roads. The figure stands at 136 billion rupees. There is 37 billion rupees with the pension fund. Last year, the bank has paid 1.4 billion as interest. These loans have not been included in the books. The individual debt as of the 31st of December 2016 was 417,000 rupees. When it comes to the purchase of treasury bonds from the central bank, the debt is calculated based on the face value of the security. At the bond scam, the single security was sold at 70 rupees when the face value was 100 rupees. However, the Finance Ministry only recorded it as 70 rupees. Therefore, the gap between the two, that is the Finance Ministry and the central bank, gradually increased. The debt became a total mess. If we start to unravel this mess now, we will be able to solve it in a decade. There was no approval for the chairman of the Land Reclamation and Development Corporation with regard to the construction of the D.A. Rajapaksa Memorial. There was a 15 billion rupee loss when importing rice. Cabinet only approved the importation of 5,000 metric tons of rice. However, they imported 175,000 metric tons of rice. We have filed reports and nothing has happened. Take a look at the elephant issue of the Department of Wildlife Conservation. If we take a look at the birth and mortality rates of the elephants, by 2048, elephants will be extinct in Sri Lanka. Yet, the Department of Wildlife is doing nothing about it. When it comes to the expenses of public funds, the chief accounting officers must always remember they are using the money of the general public. But some organizations operate as if they are handling the equipment in their kitchen. The chief accounting officer must stand firm in his duty. The main issue is these officers are not standing firm. The former governor of the central bank says he committed an act because the Prime Minister said so. The chief accounting officer is always accountable. He must accept responsibility. It does not matter who did the wrong thing. Take a look at the silk cloth incident. Just because Lalit Veeratunga's president said to do it, there is no immunity. Article 52.2 of the Constitution says the Secretary to the Ministry shall, subject to the direction and control of his Minister, exercise supervision over the departments of government or other institutions in the charge of his Minister. However, they have misinterpreted this article. It does not say to commit every wrongful act decided by the Minister.
A very good evening to the newsroom here. Now, we heard the statements made by the Auditor General Gamini Vijay Singha about national debt and the calculations, and he himself says there's no way of calculating the exact figure of national debt, and he gave some reasons for that as well. Now, behind us on these two screens are the figure of the recorded national debt. Now, we've put it on two screens because we want you to understand the magnitude of the debt that we have incurred because of the loans that successive governments and institutions, public institutions, have obtained from locally and international lenders. With me is Faraz Shaukat Ali. Faraz, this is not 100 rupees, but
that's right.
I would like you to take the lead in deriving this number for the people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zulfik. It's, as you say, it's not 100 rupees, it's not 1,000 rupees, it's not 100,000 rupees, it's not 100 million rupees, it's not 100 billion rupees, but in fact it is 10 trillion rupees. And I think I'll have to move completely away from here so that we'll be able to show you what it is. And there we are. It's I don't know if you can really see it here, but it's 10 trillion rupees, which is an absolutely astronomical figure.
For us, 10 trillion rupees is the recorded national debt, and while the Auditor General himself says there's no way of actually ascertaining the magnitude of national debt, it is now clear before the public eye that there are only a handful of public officers who are actually performing their duties to the letter.
That's right.
And even those handful of officers, some of them are not even being allowed to exercise their duties properly.
Yes, it all comes about because of this politicization of the public service, and where the professionals are simply not being allowed or permitted to carry on doing their duties. And that is, it's all back to the same thing, Zulfik, that we've been rabbiting on for a long time, and that is this departure from process. The ministers cannot and should not and shouldn't be allowed to interfere with the due process. That is in the hands of the public servants who are professionals.
For us, we've seen time and time again statements being made on the media that loans are being obtained to furnish existing loans and or furnish the interest rates.
Yes, unfortunately there is a serious attempt to mislead the public by saying that these are investments, when in fact they are loans, and loans require repaying at some point in time. And it is, of course, the people who are repaying these loans, and the generations to come are saddled with this debt.
For us, speaking of misleading, it comes to my mind a small incident. That's the Hambantota airport, whereas it came in as an investment. That was what was said, mainly an investment, but later on it was exposed that it is actually a loan.
Indeed.
And now, recently, a minister himself said before the media that in one calendar year, the revenue generated by this airport in down south was only 16,000 rupees.
With all due respect to let's say the taxis of this world, any taxi person who's operating a taxi will be earning far more than 16,000 rupees a month, and that is they'll be earning at least 30,000 to 40,000 rupees.
For us, this all boils down to mismanagement of public funds or no proper management system of public funds.
A complete departure from process, and that is the key here. The crux of the problem is that when one departs from established procedure, then it opens the doors of corruption wide and very wide indeed.
Indeed, for us now, accepted reports have made it clear that every single citizen of this country, a child and even an adult, are in debt of 417,000 rupees. So just imagine, you may not have obtained a bank loan, or you may have not obtained a loan from where you work, but still you are in debt of 417,000 rupees.
And that is a huge figure for anyone to be saddled with.
That's right for us. So the question comes to anyone's mind is that are we going to be in debt of 417,000 rupees throughout our lifetime? Now for us, speaking of due procedure, you might recall back in the day when Dudley Senanayake.
That's right. I will have to take this one on because you were probably not at the design stage. But the Galoya project was very much a real project, and during that during the period of Dudley Senanaike's time, his brother, I believe it was Robert Senanayake, was the chairman of a company, and there were accusations that that company was being favoured because of the connection to Mr. Dudley Senanayake. And of course, Mr. Senanayake, Dudley Senanayake, put it before the Public Accounts Committee, or what we would now call COPE, I suppose, and appointed a well-known economist, Dr. N.M. Pereira, to investigate it. Dudley Senanayake, in fact, paved the way for an independent system of governance.
So it did not matter if his brother was involved, but there should have been an independent inquiry.
Absolutely. There was no attempt whatsoever. And the Honourable, and it's a great pleasure and an honour to be able to refer to Dudley Senanayake as the Right Honourable Dudley Senanayake, because he acted and he welcomed the opportunity to investigate this matter fully, and it was investigated fully.
And for us, sadly, the rulers of this country have been enjoying the luxuries at the expense of public debt, and they will obviously enjoy it, and then the people will have to be in debt for the rest of their lives.
And going back in time, sorry Zulfik, but going back in time as well, again, we have to go back in time, because that is when there was good governance, which is far missing today. And I'm referring to the period of the Bandaranaike era. 2 ministers were forced to resign, and actually Mr. Bandaranaike they were not just resigning as ministers, they resigned from their parliamentary lives, from their political life. And that is the way it was those days.
The Auditor General himself commented on the bond scam on his press conference today. Now, this morning you were speaking to President's Counsel Hemantha Surya, who had some interesting thoughts on the bond scam. Let's have a listen to those thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when there was overwhelming evidence, when the whole world every day on the television, on the news media, on everywhere, was talking about the biggest robbery that ever took place in Southeast Asia, what did the Prime Minister do? So isn't he culpable of trying to protect his own friend?
Can I say that I can give you the answer as to what the Prime Minister did during this time, as you say. But his action is notable for the one thing, inaction.
Yeah, well, for us, I can understand if he did not take action, he would say, oh, of course, I waited till the Commission report was out. These are all the evidence that have been led, and I cannot come to conclusion. I, on the other hand, gave it to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General has not done anything. But all that may be true, but at least he should have made a statement and said that condemn this whole thing if he was out of this, if he was free of this whole maneuver. And then what happened when Arjuna Mahendran wanted to go abroad, when there was a case pending, when there was inquiry pending against him, he went abroad and the Prime Minister assured this country that he would come back. I believe that is what prompted the Prime Minister not to take action. Now, isn't this, we compare this to the Singaporean government.
Isn't this the actions of a mastermind?
Yeah, no, this is what happens in normal criminal, in any criminal case. The accused get together and they protect each other. One gang protects the other gang.
Those are the thoughts of President's Counsel Hemantha Surya. News First continues after this short commercial break.